process is designed to help people prepare prints or files for printing portfolio images. I'm going to try and keep it as simple and straightforward as possible and as quick as possible. For those that are interested, you can email me and I'll happily send you the text-based instructions for doing this. But I know that some people find it much easier to follow a Photoshop video tutorial. So here goes. Basically, whenever you're going to make a set of portfolio prints, you need to make some initial decisions. For instance, what size will the canvas be for the portfolios? In the UK and the British Isles, standard sizes would be the A sizes, and the two options for portfolio prints would normally be either A4 or A3. My personal preference is for A3. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a new file in the A3 format. So you'll find A3 preset under International Paper Size. You can also go in and plug in the parameters yourself, but if it's already there, you may as well use it. So under International Paper Size, and then under size itself, you've got A4, A6, A5, A3, etc. So I'm going for A3. The DPI should be 300. The color should be RGB color 16-bit. The working space is Adobe RGB 98, and I want it as a white background, with a white background. So when all of those things are double checked and I click OK, it means I've got an A3 canvas. Now, I know that the image I'm going to make, going to attach to this is a vertical image, or portrait as some people would call it. So that's why I've created a vertical canvas. It's very simple to turn it into a horizontal canvas. You just go to rotate and click clockwise 90 degrees or 90 degrees counterclockwise, and as if by magic it will turn it into a horizontal version of the A3 size. So I'll just undo that because we know we're going for a vertical. The other thing I like to do at this stage is to go into canvas size. So I use the shortcuts normally, but just for the sake of ease of operation, I'm going to show this to you. And here we have centimeters has been pre-selected because that's what we have selected at the ruler. But I'm going to select pixels. I've selected relative and I've selected black. And what I want to do now is add a 1 pixel border around the entire perimeter of the canvas. And to do that, you need to put in 2 pixels. And that's because a pixel is indivisible. You can't get anything smaller than a pixel. So if you want a pixel on either side of the canvas, you need to tell it that it's 2 pixels you're asking for. So I click OK, and a black line, a pixel wide, will now be drawn around that entire canvas. We can't see it at the moment because it's against the black background, but if I just click on crop and pull it out, you can see there it is, the black lines that I've placed. So I'm not going to crop, so we'll just cancel that. So we've got a canvas that we can work with. And what I'm going to do at this stage is save that canvas, because that, if you're doing several images, say your portfolio is going to contain 20 images or 12 images, you don't have to create a new one each time. So what you can do is save as, or create the file that you want. So I'm going to call it, we'll put it on the desktop underneath a folder that I've already created, and I'm going to call it Master A3 Canvas. Master A3 Canvas. Then I prefer PSDs, more about that later on if you really want to learn about that. And I'm going to click Save. So now under that folder, we'll just close this again. Under that folder, which is here, we now have a Master A3 Canvas. So the first thing I want to do, if I'm making 12 images for a portfolio or 20, is to create a sufficient number of canvases in order for me to execute that project. And the way I do that is by copying that. So there are a couple of ways. I just use the keyboard shortcuts, or you right click and you say copy master canvas, and then you do paste, or you use the keyboard shortcuts to do paste, which I'm doing now. And I can create as many of those canvases as I wish. So I only need one, but this is for those of you who are preparing your images for portfolio, and you decide if you want to have 12 images in the portfolio or 24 or 20, whatever it happens to be. Those are the number of canvases that you create. So to go back to the canvas then, there it is. Take off the crop tool. So I'm ready to go with that. That's my canvas. It's 300 dpi. It's got the black line around it. Now I have to figure out what size my image will be on that canvas. So this is the image I'm using as my test or my example. Open that, and there's the image. So it's much bigger than A3. I know that because it's a native file from a Nikon D800, which is 36 megapixels. So this image is quite large, and we can establish the actual size by going to image size, and there it is. It's actually 41.59 centimeters wide by 62.31 centimeters tall. That's much bigger than A3. And to get a sense of just how much bigger it is, I'm going to copy this. So the first thing I do is Command A to select all, Command C to copy, and then I'm going to paste it into this canvas, and Command V, which is paste. Then Command T, which is free transform, and that blue line indicates how much bigger than the canvas the image actually is. Clearly, we don't want to just leave it as it is because it's a terrible crop and it just looks awful. I personally prefer a border, so probably one of the first things I'll do is determine what size of border I want. There's no right or wrong here. It depends on your work and your personal preference. I'm going to create a border of 3 centimeters approximately around the entire image. Approximately. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 centimeters. It could be 2.97 or it could be 3.5, whatever it happens to be. And if I zoom in a little bit more, and because the free transform, if I zoom in a little bit more, I can draw the guides across, and there's 3 centimeters from the left and 3 centimeters from the top. So now I can start to figure out how big I want this image to be. So Command T will allow me to free transform the image. The other thing I'll do, just while I'm on the subject, I'm going to zero the scale to this point. So now 0 is here, so that's the edge of the paper. So I'm going to draw another blue, I'm going to drag another guide in so that we can see, roughly speaking, there's a 3 centimeter border here, 3 centimeter border here, and a 3 centimeter border here. Now when I free transform the image, I can figure out what size I want it to be. So roughly speaking, I've pressed Shift Lock, which seems to be something one needs to do in the 2019 Photoshop. You didn't have to do it in 2018. Ordinary Shift would constrain the proportions, but not in 2019. And you get a sense that, yeah, that's pretty good. That looks okay. So I don't know if the bottom is 3 centimeters, but you'll see in a few moments that that is not critical to this operation. But we can establish fairly quickly that the image itself is going to be pretty much 23.5 centimeters wide, or 23.7 according to these measurements up here. And for the sake of handiness, I might make that 24, or I might make it 23, because the border is not critical. What is critical is consistency. If you want to make these images full bleed, that's okay too. There's not a problem. The only problem with making them full bleed and sticking with an A size is that arbitrary cropping will have to occur, and that's not necessarily a positive thing. So let's say we decide that we want the image to be 23.5 centimeters wide. So the first thing I'm going to do is lose this image. Don't need it anymore. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to go back to the original, and I'm going to resize it to 23.5 centimeters. So I go to image size. You can see that it's 41.59 centimeters wide. So I'm going to make it 23.5, which automatically then by default turns that into 35.21. And that's because the width and the height parameters are linked. The resolution is preserved at 300 dpi. And this is the only area of I wouldn't say conflict, but different people have different schools of thoughts here. If you're making an image bigger than its native size, then you should keep it at Preserve Details 2.0. If you're making it smaller, some people say, yes, keep it at Preserve Details 2.0. Other people say you should use bicubic sharper reduction. I have carried out experiments. I can't see a difference at 100%. So I'm not too concerned. Certainly if one is making the image bigger, then Preserve Detail 2.0 is important. But I'm going to stick with Preserve Detail 2.0 even though I'm reducing the size. It's predetermined to be 23.5 centimeters. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to save as, because this is a native file, I don't want to corrupt that. So saving as means that I can title it in such a way that indicates that it's been resized and reduced. So I'm going to say reduced to 23.5 cm. In other words, the next time I go looking for, I better not put the dot, I'll put it dot. The next time I go looking for that file and see that, it's an indication that this is not the original native file. It's been played with and it's been reduced. I prefer Photoshop PSDs because when I go to look in someone's folder and they have TIFFs in the Macs, they don't seem to populate visually, so it makes it hard to figure out what images you're opening. However, PSDs are visible, so I'll save that. Next thing, quite simply, is to now copy that image and paste it onto the canvas. So the simple way to do that is Command A, which selects the entire canvas, Command C, which copies it, and then back to the canvas. And I'm going to zoom out. I used to recommend zooming out because when I go to paste, that puts it in automatically, dead center. You don't need to do that now. All you need to do is press Shift Command V and the image will go in the center. So if I zoom out, you can see we'll get rid of those guides so that you can have a proper look. That is the image dead center on an A3 canvas. It's as simple as that. The next stage is to flatten that. Let's go to Layer, Flatten Image. That'll make it smaller. So instead of having a multi-layered file, you've got just a single layer now. And the next step then is to save as, or save. So we already know that it's a master A4 canvas. So I'm just going to click Save, and that becomes the #1 file in the series that I'm about to do. So that is pretty much the way I do it. It's the way I recommend you do it. I don't like placing pictures because it turns them into smart objects and you don't have the same control unless you really know what you're doing. So this keeps it very simple, very immediate and very quick. I welcome any input. If somebody has a better way of doing it, then I'm all ears. But in terms of me sitting and doing it for you, it's not going to happen. You have to do it for me. If you want me to print these A3 portfolio images or A4 or any intermediate size, this is a process you will have to do. The onus is on you to provide me with the files you want to print. I hope that makes sense, and you can email me at j.mcginn at ulster.ac.uk, and I will provide you with the PDF that details the text-based information that I've just talked about. Okay, thank you.